Happy Friday. As you can see, I am in fact moved. I would have checked in last week, but I was under deadline and honestly I wasn't really sure what day it was. So, and I have a book out on Monday. You should check it out. It's called His to Keep, and it is a sexy, sweet, small town type romance that's in my Out of Uniform series, and it's pretty awesome. I like it a lot. But that's not what we're talking about today. We are talking about books that get better every time I read them, because after an intense deadline, I tend to go read like 10 books and just kind of reset the head case. And I tend to, in these situations, gravitate more towards books that I've read that I know I love instead of new ones, just because it's like a comfort read. And this particular time, I picked up the Jacqueline Carey's series. Honestly, I might end up reading through all 9 of her books, even though they're like super thick and obviously well loved. They get better every time because there's so much political shenanigans going on that it almost, the first time I read it I was like 15, so I was like, I have no idea what's going on, but it's kind of cool. I'm sort of down with it, you know, pain, pleasure, whatever, sexy times, awesome. My kind of romance, fantasy, adventure. But now, you know, 10, 12 years later, reading it is it's just good stuff. It's super good stuff. It hits all the right spots. Highly recommend. If you like Game of Thrones, or, you know, with Game of Thrones with a little dash of, as much as I hesitate to compare it, 50 Shades of Grey, except not. Highly recommend all her books. And of course, my go-to series that I reread pretty much everything Anne Bishop's ever written at least once a year, sometimes twice. The Black Jewels trilogy, which this is the first one, is a personal favorite. Someday I hope I can grow up and write in such a way that compels people's emotions the same way that Anne Bishop, or, you know, in a similar way to that Anne Bishop does. Those books make me laugh, they make me cry, they make me all sorts of hot and bothered, and there's not even like explicit sex on the page. Like, it's just perfection. It is perfection, and if you have not read these books, you must go out and purchase them immediately, because Damon and Lucifer, and Satan, yes, I realize saying those out loud makes me go, But yeah, it's just excellent, excellent books. In the similar vein, Alana Andrews, we'll say that. I'm not good with speaking out loud, obviously. These books, I owned the first 3 for probably almost a year before I actually read them, because I was super burned out on like urban fantasy. I was like, another one, like badass chick, you know, whatever. But it's a husband-wife team, which is awesome. They take that trope of the badass chick woman folk and like twist it, which is of course my favorite thing ever, and turn it so instead of just being this lone figure, you know, traveling through and kicking ass and taking names, which she does, she slowly like ends up with all these people around her and all these ties, and it's just fantastic. And the world building is, again, something I'd like to aspire to someday when I'm a grown-up, because it's one of those books you're like, God, I wish I would have thought of that shiz. But I didn't, and they did. And their other series, The Edge, is equally fantastic. So is the Clean Sweep book I finally just read. Basically, I'm like, more. Give me more. I need more than just 1 book a year, please. You know, more. And finally, Patrick Rothfuss, who I fangirl over in like the most probably unflattering way possible. I'm just like, ah! Beautiful, beautifully written fantasy. People don't like it. Or the criticism I've ever heard is that it's just, you know, whatever. It's not wide and sweeping and whatever enough. But it's a very personal first-person fantasy. It's the dude's a musician of sorts. And so that the way the story is told how a storyteller would tell it, rather than your traditional type fantasy, which is different, but I think it's really awesome. And I really, really like it enough to shell out significant amounts of money for a first edition signed copy of his second book before it came out. And I'm waiting on the third, patiently, very patiently waiting on the third. Cannot wait. I love freaking these books. So yes, those 4 authors specifically are ones that I reread all the freaking time. Like, which is why my to be read pile's taller than I am at this point. Because they're my comfort reads. I'm like, oh, I'm just going to read this, and then I read every single book, all 25 of them. So, check out my new book on Monday, and I hope you have a fantabulous weekend.